Hello, everybody, and welcome to the lunchtime tech talk. Today, I'm going to talk about some 8 strategies to overcome imposter syndrome. And before we get to it, I would love to know if you're connecting with me live and where you're connecting from. If you can put that live in the chat and the location where you're connecting from, that would be great before we get started. So I'm going to get started here. So imposter syndrome affects 8 out of 10 people during their lifetime. And it's defined as the anxiety or self-doubt that results from persistently undervaluing one's competence and active role in achieving success, while falsely attributing their accomplishment to luck or external factors. It disproportionately affects high achieving individuals who attribute their successes to external factors as compared to their own competencies. So it's very prevalent. That's why I thought it's an important topic to cover, especially when you're pivoting or moving from one career to another career milestone. And with that, there is that confusion between the feeling of the uncertainty as compared to imposter syndrome itself. So I want to clarify that the uncertainty is expected and a normal part of professional life. We all experience it. In fact, if we are to push ourselves to grow and move into the growth zone, one of the parts of growth is that discomfort, and we should all be comfortable at becoming uncomfortable so we can push ourselves to grow every day. So there is that healthy discomfort or healthy uncertainty as compared to undervaluing self and thinking that our achievements are a result of external factors as compared to internal competencies. So there are a few facts that are associated with imposter syndrome. The first one is the attribution of success to external factors or luck. The second one is that fear of being found out, that I'm a fraud. It's just a matter of time before people find out that I'm not legitimate, or I don't belong, or I don't deserve what I achieved. The third one, which is a result of the first two, is that we move into what's called impression management. And in that, you become a perfectionist. You over-prepare or procrastinate. So you have the two sides of the spectrum. And as a result, you overwork, you are stressed out, and ultimately you burn out. And every time you receive a compliment, you think that, oh, I'm getting away with it again. So all these kind of feelings or symptoms can indicate that someone is suffering from imposter syndrome. And it's exacerbated by biases in the workplace, especially in toxic work cultures. That's where you find that imposter syndrome is more prevalent in other healthy, inclusive workplaces. There's another thing that's a lot of people confuse is that we falsely equate confidence with competence and leadership. So in dominant groups where the confidence is perceived as competence, it's rewarded with career advancements, with leadership positions. But if other minority groups, underrepresented groups, show the same confidence that doesn't fit the framework of the dominant group, they may be labeled as incompetent or demonstrating some signs of imposter syndrome. So I wanted to kind of um, touch base on, that being confident doesn't mean that someone is competent. And I know that a lot of people are introverts in the workplace, and therefore they're maybe perceived as less confident and falsely equating that with lack of competence. So an example is that you'll see, for instance, someone who contributes to, a new product development and so on, and because of some micro biases they experience, over time they become quiet in their meetings. And that's a sign to watch out for, that the environment is not inclusive enough for people to be able to express themselves, and that confidence nurtures that pushing themselves out of their comfort zone into the growth zone. This is especially important um, within innovative teams where it has a higher failure rate, and therefore the culture within the environment should be inclusive and tolerates that higher than normal failure rate. And that is part of being outside of the comfort zone, pushing the boundaries, and so on. So, with that, I wanted to touch base on those before I get into the different strategies. So, the strategies for overcoming the imposter syndrome, the first one is that one should be honest with self and others. And by that, I mean acknowledge that you're dealing with imposter syndrome. As soon as you find that you're starting to doubt yourself or questioning whether, oh, is that because of me or is it external factors, talk to someone you trust. It could be your friend, it could be your mentor, it could be your colleague, it could be, family member, and so on. Acknowledging those feelings is important. And it's also critically important to separate the feelings from the facts. So by separating the feelings from the facts, when you write down your achievements, when you write down your goals, what you've done so far, you'll be surprised how much you've achieved and how much of that is due to you and your competencies as compared to the environment you are in. And that takes me to the second point. We tend to be, underestimate our successes, big and small. So get into a habit to celebrate whenever you overcome an obstacle. If you're doing that research project and you had, that experiment that you needed to optimize and you did optimize it, celebrate that. If you published a paper, celebrate that. If you are, you've helped the team and they closed the deal, celebrate it. And whether you've overcome an obstacle or reached a milestone. So once that gives you that confidence into getting the ball rolling and pushing yourself towards bigger achievements. The third one is what's called a SWOT. SWOT analysis in business is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat. So you can do a personal SWOT analysis where you analyze your strength, your weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats to determine what you are good at and what needs to be improved. Doing that on a regular basis, maybe every few months or so, will help you move towards the person you want to be. And it's part of your career development or personal development, and it should be incorporated as part of your growth. The fourth one is changing the narrative. Many times we look at the cup half empty. So replace that inner critic that's always like inside your head trying to find, what won't work, or, you know, there's like X percentage of me failing at this and so on. Replace that inner critic with the inner optimist. Yes, with everything that we do, there is a risk. And with the risk, there is reward. So the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. And it's part of, growth. And once we change that fear of failure, in many cases, we fear failure. And that's why we don't take risk. And we try to find a lot of things internally that will protect us from being hurt. And that's, if I look at the human evolution, that's part of like the human, um, to protect themselves from harm, that they have that fear. However, if you look at fear as, or failure as a building block towards your success, it's a huge shift in your mindset. So there is not a failure, there is either learning or winning. And with that, you kind of move from that negative to the positive mindset. A third one, fifth example is to visualize your success. So I'm a strong believer in visualization, that once you put your mind to something and you embody that vision, your whole being will be motivated, will rally uh, to help you achieve that vision. So let's say you have your eye or the next big milestone. Visualize yourself as being in that milestone and write down what are the tools, the tricks, the skill sets that you need to be in that mindset, in that position in the future. Then draw your plan backwards. What do you need to get there? And break it down into small, actionable steps. I call that macro vision and micro steps. And it really works. It really does. As a kid myself, I visualized myself as in elementary school that I would be doing a PhD in England. I didn't even know where England was because our neighbor was there, and all of my energy was towards that. And I did end up doing a PhD in genetics in England. So yeah, visualization is powerful. Yeah, we've covered that a little bit. So recognize the signs. As soon as you identify the signs, it creeps up on you. Use mindfulness, meditation, prayer, or yoga if you're into yoga to stop those feelings. Go for a walk. Do something that brings you joy on the inside. Whether it's sport, whether it's art, whether it's reading, something to keep that under wraps. And once you learn how to identify those signs and deal with them at the very beginning, it's a game changer because you prevent that snowball effect from crippling you altogether if you don't identify and deal with those signs early on. Yeah, the seventh one, I've covered that a little bit, is embrace failure. Once you shift your mindset from, I'm a failure and so on, and you're getting into that negative thought process, think of a failure as an opportunity to grow. I always ask my kids, like, what have you failed at today? Because you learn way more from failing than from succeeding. And for example, if you visualize that those failures are blocks, that's going to help you build that stepping stone towards your goal. It's a game changer. Given that you're not making the same mistake over and over again, and that within your work environment, failure is not labeled as, lack of performance, but it's part of growth. And that's especially important if you are within a tech or an innovative environment where by default you're doing things that haven't done before, and the chances for them not working the first time is much higher than other established processes within your company. So yeah, failure is a building block towards success. And the last one is find your tribe. Network with other people you trust and respect. It could be within your workplace, it could be within an industry group that you go to, it could be a community on LinkedIn that, you share similar values, or you experience the same problems. Leaning on people for support is very important. And sometimes we think, oh, we're the only ones experiencing this. But as I mentioned earlier, 8 out of 10, that's 80% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point during their career. So yeah, those are the 8 strategies that I found to be very helpful. And I've experienced imposter syndrome myself. I've been in, Ivy League. I've worked in Ivy League medical schools, and being from a small town, I questioned myself, what am I doing here? It's a matter of time before they find out I'm possibly a fraud. But being in an environment that helped push me out of my comfort zone and provided the tools that you can do this. As soon as you start, it's a matter of starting. So once you start, you gain that confidence, especially if you're a recent graduate, if you are in a completely different culture. There is always this thing, oh, I already don't fit in, and I'm different enough that my work is not going to level up. But over time, I learned that being different, being from a different culture, being from a woman, being a minority, it actually brings a different perspective, and it strengthens the team. It makes me an out of the box thinker, and with that, I find different solutions from the group. So yeah, that helps a lot. And that takes me to the role of leaders within the workplace to help minimize, or at least level up the field for their employees. So I already mentioned that, feeling unsure does not make you an imposter. It's part of professional life, especially if you are pivoting or moving up from one career stage to another. So don't mix, the that discomfort or uncertainty with imposter. Being open to learning new things, that it's okay, I'm going to fail. Chances are we are all imposters when it comes to trying new things. The difference is that mindset, that it's okay if I fail, I'm going to learn from it, make it better, and move on, as compared to, yes, I can't do this, and so on. The one thing that leaders can do as well in the workplace is create what's called psychological safety, where employees can speak up. When they speak up, they will tell you if they are struggling with something. You'll find out what they are good at versus not good at, and that will help you, delegate more effectively. It will also help reduce biases, because unfortunately, as I mentioned, sometimes confidence is confused with competence, and therefore more career advancement. The ones that disproportionately suffer from that is minorities, women of color, different genders, and so on. And therefore, having the reward system that rewards competence as compared to confidence is very important. And our role is not to fix individuals, but rather to create an environment where they can thrive. It will create an environment where a variety of leadership styles, not the dominant male Caucasian style, are tolerated and encouraged, because the way different people lead is actually can contribute positively to the advancement of whether it's a not-for-profit or for-profit organization. So I'll give you an example. I'm a strong believer in empathetic leadership. It comes from me being a mother, a multitasker, and I have that ability to connect with people and to put myself in their shoes before I take decisions. It could be conceived that you're too emotional. I'm okay with that, but it doesn't mean that I don't get my targets. I was efficient and hitting 95% of the time in my role, but it doesn't mean that I have to fit a certain leadership style that is for the dominant, white male Caucasian type. So having that flexibility of being able to bring yourself to work, and that kind of takes me to a different example that Amy Cuddy mentioned in one of her talks, where she went for a photo shoot. Amy Cuddy is the author of the book Presence, and she's a lecturer at she used to be at Harvard Business School professor. And she had this post about when she went to take a photo shoot. Her photographer, she had her T-shirt on, and he said, "Oh, let me take a picture of you with your, music band T-shirt." And she put this post that, "Oh, I'm so glad I can bring myself to work, to take a photo with my own, best music group that I support." And it's easy for people who are in the dominant group to bring themselves to work. It's not as easy for a woman of color or an African American or a Muslim or other ethnic groups to bring themselves to work, because they are the minority. Another TED talk, as that was like a rebuttal for her bring yourself to work, is that there was this African American woman who was invited to a party, a Halloween party. And they were like, "Yeah, come as you are, it's a party." She went to the party. Little did she know, there was a contest for the best costume in that party. Of course, she wasn't able to win to enter the contest, because she didn't have a costume to start with. Yet, to compete and win the contest, she had zero chance. So bringing self to work, I don't think it's the sole responsibility of the employees. It's more an effort from the organizational leadership to even out the level field, so people can bring themselves to work, can perform, can speak up, and that will help with imposter syndrome, because they don't feel that they have to fit a certain stereotype in order to be, labeled professional or in order to advance. So there is some internal work that I mentioned here in the 8 steps, but it doesn't mean that there needs to be changes from the leadership part to make that happen. So I hope that helped you out. So to recap, for those of you who are joining later, the 8 strategies to overcome imposter syndrome is to be honest with self and others, celebrate your successes, big and small, perform what's called a SWOT analysis, which is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, in order to identify what you're good at and what you need to improve. change your narrative, move from that negative to positive mindset, and visualize your successes, um, how it would feel like, and then walk backwards to see how you can get there. Recognize the signs, and use mindfulness, meditation, and what have you to deal with those. Embrace failure and find your tribe and reach out to your tribe if you need to. So yeah, if you have, those are the 8 tips that I thought would be super helpful to deal with imposter syndrome. They helped me a lot earlier in my career when I had to deal with that. And yeah, I hope you found them useful. If you would like to have a PDF version of these slides, please put yes in the chat. And if you're watching that later, you can send me a DM, a direct message with your email, and I can send you a PDF that you can keep, and hopefully that will help you, um, uh, with the imposter syndrome in the future. You can also share this with other people that you think can benefit from it. That would be super helpful. As I mentioned, it's more prevalent than what we think. It's a matter of we're not talking about it, and therefore we don't know how many people are affected by it. And yeah, with that, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I finished a little earlier, so I can answer some questions. Let me go over some of the comments here. Hi, AJ from India. Hi, Carol from the Bay Area. How are you doing? Thanks for being here. Um, yeah, Asman from Pakistan. Hello. Also have, yeah, Amr. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you, Carol. Yeah, I'm so glad to have you in my tribe too, Carol. So yeah, if you have any questions, before we wrap up, have you experienced imposter syndrome at some point in your career? If so, please say yes in the chat. I experienced it myself, so I'll go first. Awesome. I think recognizing the acknowledging that you've gone through it is half the battle won. So, and it's not something to be ashamed of. Every 8, chances are, if there's like 10 people watching this live or 100 people, 80%, 80 of them have experienced it. So you are not alone. And it's very, very common, and it's not your fault. So, and with that, yeah, what I do myself is that when I moved from academia to entrepreneurship, that was a big shift for me. So I needed to have a lot of, inner work, because moving, and I'm sure there are a lot of entrepreneurs who would be watching this, moving from a 9 to 5 job, whether it's in a corporate world or a not-for-profit world, into an entrepreneurial journey, it is a big shift. And with any big shifts, there is a lot of uncertainty. And with uncertainty, as I mentioned, imposter syndrome can easily creep in onto you. So having those toolkit that you can recognize whenever this is happening and how to deal with it is really critical. And I'll give you an example. So, for instance, the chances of success as an entrepreneur, we know there is like a 95% failure rate, but there's still a 5% chance of succeeding. And when you do, you go big. So I'm believing that you can do it, because as Steve Jobs puts it, the ones who are crazy enough to believe that they can change the world are the ones who are going to change the world. So that belief, I strongly believe that we need to do the inner work first before we tackle the outer environment. For example, if I take the example of an egg, if an egg is broken from the outside, it will die. But if an egg is broken from the inside, that's when life begins. So look inside of you and find what are the things that you need to address to thrive. And that includes imposter syndrome, confidence, and so on. And I'm going to leave you with one quote that I thought was really, really good. It's by a Dangerous Women site. And here it goes. Whatever you think you cannot do, just know that there is someone who is confidently doing it wrong right now. They have no plans on doing it better either. And people are paying them to do it. So please believe in your own excellence as much as they believe in their own mediocrity. And with that, thank you so much for staying with me. And I will see you next Wednesday. Have a great day. Bye bye.